All right. Before we talk a bit about email copy and how to write good outreach email, we first need to discuss email deliverability because we want to make sure that whatever you send ends up in the recipient's inbox as opposed to the promotions or spam folder. So let's dive right into it. The first thing that you need to realize is there is a difference between your sales emails versus your marketing emails. The biggest difference I would say is that your marketing emails are designed to nurture your leads. You're giving them more information. You are escalating them through the series of realizations. Your sales email is ideally going out to people who you believe are qualified leads or potentially qualified leads. So you're going after prospects who are a good kind of match to your ideal target persona. And then you're trying to identify if they're, at the right decision-making process. Do they actually have a problem? Those kind of things. So that is the biggest difference. You're not using your sales emails to nurture those leads. Sales emails are very, not to say transactional, but they are very personalized. So just keep that in mind. I want to talk a bit about mailing clients. So generally, when you send a bulk email, the traditional route or the most common route is to actually send it through a mail client like a MailChimp, an ActiveCampaign, HubSpot, and whatnot. These type of email campaigns usually are more marketing centric rather than sales centric. There are some instances where you might use a client like, let's say, HubSpot or Salesforce to send sales specific emails, but I would generally discourage that. And I'll go into why in a second. The first thing to realize is that when you use a mailing client, like let's say MailChimp, they are sending email on behalf of many other companies, not just your company, to many different recipients. Obviously, you are sending to a lot of different recipients, but also all of the other companies are also sending to different recipients. The challenge that lies therein is, let's say if company A over here, if they start sending spam, and if enough of their recipients start to mark those emails as spam, some things will start to happen. So what happens? What happens is, number one, as they mark emails coming from, let's say, a MailChimp or HubSpot or what have you as being spam, that affects any and every email coming from that vendor, whether or not it's from company A or your company or any other company going to this recipient. Make sense? And if enough people start to report spam emails from other companies, not necessarily just company A, generally this puts a red flag on the mail client servers, and this will affect the kind of recipient rates for all of the companies that are sending email through that mailing client. Basically, then everyone's emails will tend to end up in those spam or promotion folders. Obviously, a lot of these organizations, these large companies, they have different workarounds. They have things like double opt-in, getting you to fill out your DNS records, using and constantly switching between different servers, and so on and so forth. Despite that, it's unavoidable that some of your emails will occasionally end up in the spam or promotions folders. So it is, in my opinion, if you're sending a sales email, you want to preferably send it through your own inbox, because that is the situation where you have the highest likelihood where your email will not end up in that spam or promotional folder, and your client is more likely to read it. So just keep that in mind. This is why, as well, no matter what you do, most mailing clients, generally the average open rate is, I would say, about 25%. And that's kind of industry standard. You can be higher if you do a really good job of maintaining your list, cleaning your list, kind of removing people who have unsubscribed, removing low engagement contacts in your mailing list. But generally, no matter how well you do, typically I'd say it's anywhere from 25% to about 50% open rate. Versus if you send from your own inbox, you can get close to 80 to even 90 something percent open rates. So just keep that in mind. So some kind of general best practices is, if you're doing bulk sales outreach, you preferably don't necessarily want to send from your main domain. And the reason why is because naturally, as you do a sales campaign, even if your emails are highly personalized, if they're not spammy in nature, some people will still flag you as spam. And if they do that, it might affect your, it will affect your primary domain, So you want to set up a subdomain, right? This could be something like, let's say if your email is classynovel.com, maybe it's classynovelcanada.com or something like that. So set up a new domain. Start slow. You don't want to start by sending a whole bunch of outreach through a new email address right away. Google can see that as being very spammy and naturally will flag your servers as well. And third, not only are you sending those emails, you're making sure that you warm up your new domain. And warming that up involves like making sure that people are actually clicking, opening up your emails, and maybe even replying to some of them as well. So what some organizations will do is they will set up kind of a network of different email addresses and different domains, and then they'll basically co-email each of the domains such that they will help basically warm up all of their different sort of domain names and email addresses so that they're ready to use those for an active sales campaign when they do want to do it. So this is very technical. Again, you shouldn't need to go into this if you already have a pretty decent, let's say, email record. And if you're quite comfortable with not sending an outrageously large amount of emails. So if you're going to send, in small batches, then you're usually okay. If you're not too spammy, if you're personalizing those emails, then you should be okay with using your own domain name. So just keep that in mind. There are a whole bunch of technical basics to make sure that you set up just to make sure that your emails are not going to trigger those spam filters. Some of the basics include your SPF or your sender policy framework, your DKIM. That's the thing that provides encryption key and your digital signature that verifies that the email is actually not forged or altered. Your DMARC, which stands for domain-based message authentication. This is just an email authentication policy and protocol. So I won't go into the details of how to set those up, but I've included 2 links over here. One is the Cold Email Academy by Milkshake, and another one is the Cold Email Masterclass by Milkshake. Check those 2 out. They actually cover a lot of technical side of things in terms of how to set your SPF up, how to set your DKIM, your DMARC, and kind of how to do that list warming up that I talked to you about as well. So once you set all of those up, then you should be in a good position to start sending your email campaigns. In terms of some metrics, I just want to kind of set some expectations around the main ones. So generally, these are the key ones that you look at. So number 1, your open rates. Are people opening up and reading those emails, right? Number 2, whether or not you get positive or neutral response rates. So not only response rates, because sometimes you have negative responses, like people unsubscribing or people saying, don't email me anymore, those kind of things. So you don't want to generally overcount those bad responses, or maybe even, let's say, if you get those out of office responses, right? That counts as a response, but generally that person's not actually reading your email. So making sure that you actually tally up those positive or at least neutral but engaging responses. And then following up from that, are you tracking those appointments? How many of those emails result in actual conversion? Because it's not just about people replying to you, not just about people opening your email, but you want to make sure that whatever list that you're emailing out to is a good quality list that will actually convert, most important, convert into actual sales. So, appointments, number 1. Are you tracking it in your, let's say, your CRM or your, let's say, Salesforce or HubSpot? And then number 4, qualified appointments, not only getting appointments, but are you qualifying your leads? Are they people who will move forward? And then lastly, revenue, right? Does it actually end up with a good number of customers that close? Because sometimes as you run different list building campaigns, you may find that certain lists are very engaging. Maybe a lot of them result in appointments, but very few of them convert into sales. You may have, let's say, another list where you go after, let's say, a slightly different target demographic. Less of them respond, but a lot of them end up buying your product or service. A lot as in the ones that do end up responding. So you want to make sure that you're tracking these key 5 things. And as you do that, then you will ensure that you're on the right path to measuring success in terms of your email campaigns. So let's move into the next video and we'll talk about how to write those emails.